series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
Several shots were fired as President Kennedy's motorcade passed through downtown Dallas.
None of us will ever forget this day. Yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world.
Can you just say again, please?
You're coming out of problem.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Welcome to the Hagmann Daily Show, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And now your hosts, Joe Hagmann and Jon Robberson.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Tuesday, January 9th, 2018 edition of the Hagmann Daily Show. We got a lot to get into today, and we're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about Oprah. As yesterday, we mentioned this at the beginning of the show, that they were talking about the possibility of rolling her out as a political candidate. Well, I have some more thoughts on that I want to share this morning, and I know John does as well. We're also going to talk about immigration a little bit. Today, you have Trump meeting with lawmakers over Dreamers as they're trying to negotiate a border wall or border security package with the Dreamer Act that the Democrats want to push. But it seems that negotiations aren't really moving because there is no room for compromise on the left. The Trump administration is saying that if you want a legislative act to secure the dreamers in this country, that you need to compromise and fund a border wall. Well, the left is not budging on that, and we'll talk a little bit about what else is going on with the immigration reform through this Trump administration. Also, go to HagmannReport.com. Peter Barry Chowka has a new piece up, How the Anti-Trump Resistance Pumps Up MSNBC's Ratings. And I know he had a different title on that at first. I think it was Why Fox News' Ratings Are Declining. But it's an interesting article nonetheless. I only read the first few paragraphs, but good as always. Also, on the immigration front, this on Hagmann Report, leaked memo, Dreamers are critical to Dems' future electoral success. The left counting on illegal immigrants that they bus and ship in order to secure votes. It's pretty sad and lowbrow, if you ask me, but that's how they operate. So let's start with Oprah Winfrey. And John, I know you sent me a video. This is of the Golden Globe speech, correct?
Indeed it is. Yeah, let's roll the Golden Globe speech, Joe, about a minute or so of that, and then we'll take it from there. I do want to quickly give a shout out to one of the Hagmann Report chat members last night who came up with Nopra.
Yeah, Nopra. Okay, well, here is part of her speech at the Golden Globes, which the media and entertainment industry, will not stop talking about, and we'll explain why that is after this clip. Here we go.
Because we all know that the press is under siege these days, but we also know that it is the insatiable dedication to uncovering the absolute truth that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and to injustice. To tyrants and victims and secrets and lies. I want to say that I value the press more than ever before as we try to navigate these complicated times, which brings me to this. What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. And I'm especially proud and inspired by all the women who have felt strong enough and empowered enough to speak up and share their personal stories.
All right, John, we got to the 4:08 mark. I had a problem. Your truth. There's no such thing as your truth. There's only truth, and then there's fiction. There's no your truth. And the press being under siege by what? The truth?
There you go. And there it is. That's exactly correct, Joe. That what triggered me, I was triggered. I got triggered here this morning. Yeah, I was triggered. I don't have a safe space. I might have a coloring book somewhere, but I don't have a safe space. So, yeah, I mean, come on. The press is under siege. You know, this may be a little foul, but I'm going to say it anyway. As soon as I heard that, I thought, no, the press is more under like autoerotic asphyxiation because they're completely doing this to themselves. And then the other part, your truth. Joe, let's do this. Why don't you share with us your truth on Oprah?
Oprah, a more masculine version of Obama. No, this is from the Daily Wire. Top 5 Oprah fails. Calling for people to die, racism hoaxes, praising of jihad on her show, and more. Where was the Hollywood Press Association that was receiving such applause at the hands of Oprah Winfrey again, a woman who is good friends with Harvey Weinstein, being cheered by Meryl Streep, a woman who gave a standing ovation to Roman Polanski. This from Ryan Saavedra of the Daily Wire. The media used the 75th Golden Globe Awards Sunday as a platform to launch Oprah Winfrey into the national discussion regarding a possible presidential run in 2020. As the Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro told Fox News on Monday, Oprah may be popular right now, but if she enters the political arena, she will immediately hit her popularity. She will see an immediate hit to her popularity, which could affect her very differently than it did Donald Trump. Shapiro wrote a list that is put together of why she should not or could not be running for president. Number 5, Golden Globe Awards speech. Shapiro says she was standing in front of an entire town filled with sexual abusers and harassers. She said nothing about it for 20 years. She was being cheered by people who said nothing about it for 20 years. And there she is pretending that she's leading the fight. Oprah did not lead the fight against the culture of sexual misconduct in Hollywood. And she cannot use the excuse of I was afraid of what it might do to my career, because she is one of the biggest people in media with little to fear. And he goes on to through on that point, pointing out that she's good friends with Harvey Weinstein and is good friends with Meryl Streep and all these people who cheer Roman Polanski, the pedophile. And that's just one. Number 4, Oprah suggests Americans are racist, even if they don't have ill will towards black people. And then he goes through the interview on Anderson Cooper where she said that. 3, Oprah gives platform to an Islamic scholar who says Islamic jihad is only a spiritual battle, not a holy war. That's self-explanatory. 2, Oprah makes absolutely not true racism allegations against the store clerk in Europe. And you're going to have to go on there and read this. But basically she made false claims about a racial encounter that never happened. And it came out that Winfrey was lying. Number 1, Oprah says older generations just have to die to solve the problem of racism. And there's an audio clip with that on there on this Daily Wire piece. But, you know, the real reason that the left is so giddy about Oprah is because there's no real leader of the Democratic Party. There's no real contender or a person from the left who can successfully run against Donald Trump and win. And they know this. They have no platform to stand on. The only thing the Democratic Party runs on anymore is their anti-Trump hysteria. They have no new ideas. They have no thoughts on how to change policy, how to change anything in the financial or political world to make this country run more efficiently and go back to its foundational roots of following constitutional law. There's nobody there. So what do? They're trying to take a picture right out of the Donald Trump playbook and pick somebody who's already famous, already established, already wealthy to run a fake populism movement. But this is not populism. This is establishment. So they're going to run into the problems that Hillary Clinton ran into. Yes, Oprah Winfrey has celebrity status, but is that enough to I mean, look what happened in the 2016 election. Hillary Clinton couldn't even fill a high school gymnasium. Donald Trump had, overflow in football stadiums and arenas, huge arenas with 10s and 20, 30, 40,000 people. I think you'll see the same thing if Oprah Winfrey runs. There might be that initial excitement. And look who's behind her. Do we need to say any more? The media, Hollywood, the left. That's their endorsement. She's no good for the country to be a political leader. Yeah, she's very smart and a great entrepreneur and is a self-successful billionaire. And that's awesome. But when your only accomplishment is to run, or your only argument is against the person who's in office, and you have no ideas, nothing to bring to the table except adding to that mindset, then what do you have to offer as president?
Well, she could put together a contingent of the Jerry Springer, Montel Williams, hanging out on the sofa eating TV dinners at 11:30 a.m. crowd, but that's not going to put her in the White House. Joe, Oprah's been flapping her gums for 30 years, and she would get slaughtered. And first of all, I'm not sure she could win the primary, because there are some people left in the DNC that can put two thoughts together, and they would look at her body of work over the last 30 years, and they would realize that anyone who can use iMovie would be able to piece together just incendiary hit pieces on Oprah, because she's run a talk show for 30 years. I mean, can you imagine the drivel that could be spliced together that would absolutely bury her?
Oh, they're already doing it. The internet is already on it. I saw yesterday a call to action on a number of different forums and message boards. Gather all the Oprah clips before they're erased from the internet. So people have been doing that since yesterday, and I've seen compilation videos here and there. The piece Ben Shapiro did highlighting some of the past misgivings or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the reality of the situation is just what I said. There is no leadership in the Democratic Party. They have no person who can successfully run against Donald Trump just based on their policies and popularity. So they're grasping. We heard them floating the idea of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, running. Now it's Oprah. I mean, they're lost. They're literally lost.
Well, they're out of ideas. And the reason they're out of ideas, Joe, goes back to what you said at the opening of our program today, which is that to a man, to a woman, the Democrats, the liberals, I don't even know what you call these people anymore. They're best personified by that sort of strange transitional person that sat down on the sidewalk and screamed last January 20th. I'm not even sure. Do we even know to this day if that's a boy or girl? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just not sure. But to a person, they believe in, quote, your truth, unquote. And the truth, as you so aptly stated, Joe, is not open to personal interpretation. That's what makes the truth not only a beautiful thing, but a primary thesis, if you will, throughout the entire Bible, is that the truth is the truth. Manipulation is personalized. Lies are personalized. And so what we have here is we have a group of individuals who are out of ideas because they've completely spun off from anything remotely resembling the truth. And when you look at a celebrity like Oprah Winfrey, there was a big article done on her about 10, 15 years ago that stated Oprah Winfrey spends $1 million a week. And they were celebrating that because once she put the OWN network together, she became very wealthy with national syndication, et cetera. And she is not of the people or by the people or for the people. And God bless Ben Shapiro, but he left out two critical points. The first is that Oprah flipped the script when she started adopting universalism instead of her Christian roots.
Oh, yeah, she's New Age all the way.
All the way, all the way. And the other thing
There's
I want to say...
There's many ways to heaven. There's many ways. And she talked about... I remember she had a show where she said Jesus wasn't the only way.
Another lie.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention quickly about Oprah is man, if I was a DNC strategist, well, first of all, I would shoot myself. But prior to that, I would say, listen here, people, what you need to grasp is 62 million Americans voted for what's good for Main Street, not Wall Street, not the Beltway. Is Trump a billionaire? Yes. Is he sort of an inside guy? Yes. But his message and his mission, and frankly, his actions after 1 year of being president of the United States, indicate that he really is trying to throw down a legacy, give people like Barron Trump a fighting chance once he's of working age. And that's I really believe in his heart, that's what he is trying to do. So Oprah Winfrey is a joke. And the other thing that Ben Shapiro missed with Oprah Winfrey is this concept of antagonism based on race. This is not where the majority of the country's at today, Joe. There's an interesting piece on Twitter. People could just go to my Twitter feed at Robberson John, or you can go to the CJ Pearson. And this young man is a sophomore in high school. He did a Periscope 3 days ago, Joe. It's got 293,000 views. And what he put on Twitter says, "I'm an African-American teen, and even I don't get why it's so popular now to hate white people for no reason other than the color of their skin. Martin Luther King Jr. would be ashamed."
Yeah, and that's right on the money. I don't want to spend too much more time talking about Oprah, John, so let's move on to the immigration issue, because there's a lot of things going on with immigration. I have, in the background here, I have CNN up on my TV screen just to read what's going on, and they're talking about some of the people who are leaving, the Republicans who are leaving Congress, 31 Republicans leaving Congress, some to run for governor, some to run for Senate, some to do other things, I don't know, but they say that these congressmen leaving, and with this this is an opening for the Democrats to gain more seats in the House. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's yet to be seen. But one of the ferocious battles going on in D.C. is the immigration talk. You have what we see going on, the debates about dreamers and dreamer legislations, what is going to be done to, solidify dreamers as not that status anymore, to be permanent residents of this country. That's what the left wants, and the right is saying, well, we need a funding for a border wall. There has to be some compromises here. You have to meet us halfway. And it looks like those talks are pretty stale, at least on the making compromises from the left. But today, or yesterday, DHS announces end to special status for 200,000 Salvadorans. The Trump administration said Monday it will end special humanitarian protection for more than 260,000 would-be illegal immigrants from El Salvador, though it granted them a long grace period to get their affairs in order to try and find another legal status. They have till September 9th, 2019 to either apply for permanent status or go back to El Salvador. They were brought in from a 2001 earthquake disaster, and it was a temporary protected status. So anybody who's trying to parrot an idea that this is some racist ploy by the Trump administration needs to understand that this was only temporary in the first place, but it seemed to be open-ended. They just put an end on it, and they're not kicking everybody out. They're saying you can either become a legal resident or you can be deported. And this is definitely going to spur some talking points in the news. I can guarantee it. But John, you have some statistics about the financial cost of immigration in different states. Is that correct?
I do. Let's take a look quickly. Well, first I want to just compliment what you just said, Joe. The TPS, the temporary protection status. So we're looking at 2001, and I remember the earthquake. So they've been here for 17 years. The Trump administration is giving them almost, not quite, but almost 2 years from now to get their affairs in order. I think by any definition, regardless of what ethnic heritage an individual may be or whatever identifying characteristic, that's more than fair, Joe. I mean, I'm sure you agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take a look at what illegal immigration is running the U.S. taxpayer. I found in it, Joe, I don't know if you get this, but I still get a little thrill when I find a new website that I have never examined before that appears to be pretty straightforward. And I found one today. It's fairus.org. That's FAIRUS.org. This by Matt O'Brien, posted back in September. And the headline is, "The Fiscal Burden of Illegal Immigration on United States Taxpayers." Now, he opens up with a beautiful introduction, and I'll just cut to the chase. However, FAIR now estimates that there are approximately 12.5 million illegal alien residents. I beg to differ with that, frankly. I think there's almost that many in Los Angeles and Texas alone. But let's continue. This number uses FAIR's previous estimates, but adjusts for suspected changes in levels of unlawful migration based on information available from the Department of Homeland Security, data available from other federal and state government agencies, and other research studies completed by reliable think tanks, universities, and other research organizations. A very long sentence that frankly doesn't say much. At the federal, state, and local levels, taxpayers shell out approximately $134.9 billion to cover the costs incurred by the presence of more than 12.5 million illegal aliens and about 4.2 million citizen children of illegal aliens. That amounts to a tax burden of approximately $8,075 per illegal alien family member. Now that's family member. Many of these families have 6, 8 members. The costs become enormous. And a total of $115,894,597,664. The total cost of illegal immigration to U.S. taxpayers is both staggering and crippling. Let's take a quick moment, Joe, just to isolate some of these figures and look at 2 of the most burdened states by illegal immigration, starting with California. Now, this goes back to June 2014, but the numbers are interesting. It says Californians bear an enormous fiscal burden as a result of illegal immigration. Let's cut to the chase. The annual expenditure of state and local tax dollars on services for that population is $25.3 billion. The total amounts to a yearly burden of about $2,370 for a household headed by a U.S. citizen. Now, Joe, this ties into the 2 things that the Trump administration has repeatedly said must be mitigated. These must be either repaired or, in my humble opinion, done away with totally, which is the lottery process, which I think is basically a joke. I think it's a feel-good, virtue signaling joke from the federal government. And then, of course, chain migration, which makes a little bit more sense, but it just becomes this incredibly burdensome chain reaction that sometimes, not always, but sometimes ends with dead bodies in the street, like what we saw in New York. Let's move over to the National Economics Editorial, nationaleconomicseditorial.com. Illegal immigrants cost Texas $12.36 billion a year. Get this, Joe, 10% of the state's budget. Now, I don't want to burden our listeners with too many stats, so I'll bounce it back to you, but we're talking really serious dollars and cents here. And whereas I like this fairus.org site, I do just viscerally feel, based on previous research as well, Joe, that their numbers are low. 12.5 million. Yeah. I think it's much higher than that. But this cost is enormous.
It is.
Joe?
And John, check out the open up the attachment in the email I just sent you. It's pretty funny. But I read some statistics on the other side of that, where I think it was California had a thing that says if all the illegal immigrants were deported from California, it would cost the state $11 billion in revenue. But that doesn't make sense because most illegal immigrants, if not all of them, work under the table and don't pay taxes anyway. So that doesn't make any sense, the stats they were throwing out there. But yeah, it is. It's amazing. And, I have no problem, our country being much more wealthy than most other countries, bringing people in, helping people who are in need, whether it's from natural disasters or war-torn countries. But you don't bring people in just for the sake of trying to diversify your population, just for the sake of for the purpose of starting societal and civil clashes. When you bring in millions of Middle Eastern Muslims who have an agenda and ideology of complete destruction of the West, and you start to wonder why terrorist attacks happen. And then not only that, these people will turn around and call you racist if you point that out. It's just insanity. It not only costs money, but it costs lives, and it costs instability and other acts of violence in our society. And it can be mitigated. There should be much more vetting. There should be a lot of other systems and checks and balances in place to make sure that the people we are bringing in are and will be able to assimilate. And I know that's not a science that can be, get down to 100%, but I know they can do a lot better than what they're doing now.
Joe, let's isolate this quickly. I'll just take a brief moment. First of all, we've got to put away this combination of immigration as related to racism or racial discrimination, etc. The two can be sort of evil kissing cousins, but they're not really the same topic. Racism is if you're up in the mountains of Idaho proclaiming that Hitler was the first red-pilled individual and the Jews never died, and I hate this or that group of people because of where they were born or the color of their skin. That's pure racism. Joe, I know you personally. You know me. We don't roll that way. But immigration status is a protection of the cultural fabric and the heritage of your country. That is not racism. That is just, I think, holding to traditional values and saying, hey, we want to have diversity here, but we don't want a soft invasion from within. Now, to bounce back quickly to the Golden Globes, I don't want to belabor this, but Joe, did you notice the other night? I didn't watch them, but I've watched a lot of YouTube pieces. Hollywood is not looking good. These people are looking like serious retreads. They look like they're taking the same demon pills that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton get up and take every day.
They all do. They all do.
Exactly. They're not looking good. Frances McDormand looks terrible. Meryl Streep looks terrible. Oprah Winfrey looks like she's turning into Michelle Obama. Look at Reese Witherspoon. I've always thought she was a darling doll of the cinema, and even she's starting to look a little tired.
From that clip you sent, that Oprah clip, Sharon Stone looked awful too. I don't know if you saw her in that Oprah clip.
Yeah, I didn't mention her because I used to wait on her 20 years ago. And
she's from Erie.
She's actually a very sweet lady. She's antithetical to the characters that she's played. But indeed, all these people are Joe. It's bizarre. These people are starting to look like their belief system. And I don't know if this has always been the case and I just didn't notice, or if this is something new in the last few years. But the other point I want to make about the Hollywood celebs and their carrying on Sunday evening, these people build careers on virtue signaling. They build careers on, please like me, I'm unique, I'm special, please like me. Oh, you like me? Pay me because you like me. That's what these people do for a living. So clearly, they have to get up and applaud like a bunch of mindless lemmings when somebody like Oprah spouts out. I mean, come on, that speech that she delivered is really full of platitudes. There's nothing original in that speech. God bless Sidney Poitier. He was a great actor. I'm not slamming him. But it's platitudes. It's almost like getting up and saying, good is good. God is God. You know, I mean, these are just worthless remarks. So Hollywood has built their careers on virtue signaling, and now a bunch of reprobates, a bunch of abusers and victims are coming together, proclaiming something that I've been screaming about for 3 years on the Hagmann Report. And the last thing I want to say is, if people haven't seen the optic of Oprah Winfrey biting Harvey Weinstein's ear, it makes a very strong case for sticking to 2 cocktails.
No, and you're right, John. And it's we can talk more about this later. I want to get into the well, no, there's some stuff I got saved. I was reading earlier today. I got to pull it up so I can read from it or reference it, because there were some great points that somebody wrote. But still on immigration, let's talk about the Dreamers. This is up on Hagmann Report. Leaked memo: Dreamers are critical to Dems' future electoral success. This is the Center for American Progress Action Fund circulated a memo on Monday calling illegal immigrants brought here at a young age, so-called dreamers, a critical component of the Democratic Party's future electoral success. The memo, co-authored by former Clinton communications director Jennifer Palmieri, who should be in jail, was sent around to allies calling on Democrats to refuse to offer any votes for Republican spending bills that do not offer a fix for dreamers and instead appropriate funds to deport them. Center for American Progress's action memo says protecting DACA is not only a moral imperative for Democrats, it is also key to getting votes. And why is this? And I'm going to read some comments from what other people thought. One comment says, one look at the country's election map for Trump's election shows how deep the Democrats are in. They have to import low information voters because they can only steal so many votes in big cities. The next comment: when their party abandons the blue collar or working class, what other options do they have? Republicans need to make sure these dreamers don't become voters. And I think that's a good point. Another comment: it's ridiculous that the Democrats are allowed to smuggle in and bribe a whole voting base demographic. I can't imagine this being allowed to continue. No sane American would vote for someone who was blatantly against their right to freedom, and greed has completely corrupted the Democratic Party. All good points. But what does it say? That, I mean, is this what the left is reduced to? Is this the only way that they can win, is by election rigging and stacking the voting booth with illegal immigrants?
Yep, and it goes even worse than that, Joe. Check this out from Fox News Insider. And this is the type of stuff that really takes an honest conversation about racism, which I believe, frankly, I think I have enough of a centrist mind to say, yes, there is some racism that still exists in this country. Heck, I spent 18 years in Los Angeles where basically everybody's racist to a degree. There's 190 different races living in LA, and to a degree, they all kind of snip and snipe at each other.
At this point, who cares anymore? Because
it's not
let me say
germane.
this.
Exactly.
The definition of racism versus what the political media Hollywood establishment calls racism are two totally different things. The meaning of the word racism has been totally lost because it now encompasses you, if you're white, if you don't agree politically with the ideology of the left. It has been so overused and abused, it has no meaning left.
Exactly, and this supports that 100%. Give me a quick second. This is from Fox News Insider. Now, this is a throwback piece of news to September 20, 2017. But check out this headline. DNC Vice Chair Keith Ellison compares Dreamers to Jews in Nazi Germany. Now, that comparison should offend any familial survivors of the Holocaust right there, because that comparison is ludicrous. The deputy chairman of the Democratic National Committee compared illegal immigrants living in the United States to Jews in Nazi Germany. Quote, and if you ask yourself, what would I do if I was a Gentile in 1941? If my Jewish neighbors were under attack by the Nazis, would I give them sanctuary? End quote, the Minnesota congressman said this week in Minneapolis. Earlier this month, President Trump gave Congress 6 months to come up with a legislative solution for the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which prevents deportation of undocumented immigrants brought to America as children. And it goes on to talk about how the Obama administration threw a bunch of fuel on this fire. But Joe, even a novice reader of occasional history should realize that to look at the entire globe, where there are regions and conflict and starvation and poverty and economic issues everywhere, to compare illegals in the United States to a persecuted people based on race running for their lives from perhaps the most evil tyranny since the Babylonians is ludicrous at face value, and it's insulting if you dig a level deeper. Joe, the Jews were persecuted by the Nazis. That's a pure definition of racism. Illegals who come to the United States for myriad different reasons, from political persecution on one side to perceived economic prosperity on another, those two, I mean, you talk about comparing apples and oranges. My goodness.
Yeah, and this is the problem with the left and the arguments of the left and their, racism and white supremacism and all their other isms that they try to label conservatives as, and Christian conservatives as, Nazism. It's all lost its meaning. It's all, these comparisons, these accusations, and the wide-ranging use of these words have taken away the true meaning of the words. I know now, maybe at one time in my life, if somebody called me a racist, I would feel, some kind of way about it. But now, who cares if you call me a racist? I know what I am. It doesn't matter what you say, and your definition of racism isn't even, accurate, if that's what you believe. So they've lost the argument. They've lost the moral high ground. And all they have left is voter fraud and illegal immigrants and Oprah. It's amazing that, but they have the media and they have the entertainment industry.
It's funny. Yeah,
so Joe, they have their grip on society still.
They've got nothing right now but hyperbole, exaggeration, platitudes, and fake news. That's what they've got. And fortunately for our listeners on the Hagmann Daily Show, we will chew and digest the fake news so that you don't have to.
Van Jones gushes over Oprah. Queen of the universe would destroy anyone in front of her if she ran for president. This is the mindset of the left. Queen Oprah, queen of the universe. That's crazy. She hasn't been relevant for 10 years anyway, if we're being honest. So whatever. Anyway, there's another piece. Journalist group names Trump as world leader most undermining global press freedom. An advocacy group that promotes press freedom worldwide said Monday that President Donald Trump is the worst world leader when it comes to undermining global press freedom. The Committee to Protect Journalists released a list of sarcastic awards in honoring of the worst press oppressors, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, Turkish President Erdogan, but Trump earned the top honors in the category of overall achievement in undermining global press freedom. I'd like to. They say that the awards were a response to Trump's fake news awards, which he said he was delaying till next Monday, and I forgot to mention that yesterday because I don't know how accurate this is or not, or why he delayed it. If his reason is as he says, but he said there was so much interest in it that he wanted to do something better than what he had planned. So he said on Monday he is going to do that, 1 week from when he initially said he was going to, but. I mean, give me some examples of how Trump has suppressed freedom. And if you say, using the term fake news, that is not suppressing freedom of the press at all. And if anything, that should be convicting them to be more accurate and more honest in their reporting. But they double down. So,
are you ready for this? This is classic. This is from cpj.org. In response to Trump's fake news awards, CPJ announces Press Oppressors Awards. This from yesterday, January 8th, 2018. Amid the public discourse of fake news and President Trump's announcement via Twitter about his planned fake news awards ceremony, I feel like my spirit's being taken over by Mark Dice right now. CPJ is recognizing world leaders who have gone out of their way to attack the press and undermine the norms that support freedom of the media. This is just amazing. From an unparalleled fear of their critics and the truth to a relentless commitment to censorship, these 5 leaders and the runners-up in their categories have gone above and beyond to silence critical voices and weaken democracy. So they're putting President Trump on the same list as Erdogan in Turkey. They're putting him on the same list as all of these African sort of cult of personality dictators. Boy, you talk about this is just amazing. I mean, this article, I'm not even going to give this article its due by reading any of the rest of it. Again, President Trump, President Xi Jinping of China is the runner-up behind President Trump, with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, coming in third. Joe, these people, without filling this country with immigrants from all over the world who, again, are not only low information voters, but they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. I've read many studies that say it takes 3 generations, with very few exceptions, perhaps in the last 50 years, the Cubans being one, to take a recently immigrated family to build up conservatism. And what's sad about that is often many of these immigrant families have very conservative values when they come to this country, but they're fish out of water. They don't know what's going on. They don't know our laws. They don't know the Constitution or the history of the country per se. So they are duped by liberalism because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. Remember, we're talking 25, 30, 35 grand per immigrant family coming out of the federal coffers. And it takes to the 3rd generation for the immigrant families and their progeny to catch up to their own conservative values. And yet we have these jackasses, huge press corps notions of comparing President Donald Trump to the leader of China, one of the last communist countries in town. This is madness.
Yeah, it is. And, more madness. CNN promotes Jim Acosta to chief White House correspondent. CNN announced Tuesday that it has promoted Jim Acosta to be the network's chief White House correspondent, a bump from his previous title of senior White House correspondent. But he's really close to getting his
credentials.
Yeah, he's real close to getting his credentials revoked. So that's an interesting but not surprising move there by CNN. And reading in that article, some of his coworkers said that they believe the tensions and the interruptions in the press briefings with Donald Trump and his communications director is because he's angling to get his own show, and his own opinion show, and that could very well be the case. Obviously, that's what these people strive for, is their 1-hour opinion show on CNN. But anyway, there is interesting news, John. I know we were going to cover some of this stuff about the deep state. Also, there is news on the session or the DOJ and FBI, the text. I want to play this video, John, if we can. I'm going to send you over the link so you can, since for whatever reason the sound is not coming through my computer to yours, you can watch this on your end while we play this, because me trying to give some kind of update on what's going on with all the stuff here would probably get confusing. So there's a Fox News piece on this article that talks about text from FBI officials spur probe into leaks. And this has to do with what Peter Strzok said and Lisa Page said in the Mueller investigation. And instead of me reading the article or trying to explain it myself, I figured we can just play this video on this Fox News report. It's about 5 minutes long. I think it's from this morning, if I am looking at this correctly. But the congressional lawmakers are reportedly looking into whether Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were behind some of the leaks to the media on the Russian investigation, reaction and analysis from cybersecurity and analyst Morgan Wright. And there is, as we've been talking about, a whole host of things going on in the DOJ, in the FBI, with the Russia probe. And we have investigations into Hillary Clinton's email, investigations into the Clinton Foundation, the Russia investigation into the Fusion GPS Trump dossier, an investigation into Trump and Russia being conducted by Mueller. We have a House committee getting access to long-sought Trump dossier records. There's all these investigations, all these committees, all these subpoenas, all these political players in Washington being questioned, from Huma to Hillary. It is crazy. But this article, House Intelligence Committee investigators got access to the remaining documents they had long sought as part of their Russia inquiry during a classified session at the Justice Department Friday, a source told Fox News. Investigators were allowed to review the records and take notes, but not take copies, which is standard in sensitive cases. The documents were described as core records concerning the controversial anti-Trump dossier and its handling by the FBI, including witness interview summaries for confidential sources or informants. While the dossier was compromised by opposition research firm Fusion GPS and author, former British spy Christopher Steele, also was a source for the FBI, first relaying some information in July 2016. The same month, the Clinton email case closed for the first time and the Russia counterintelligence case opened. The Justice Department and FBI are on a tight timeline to provide records and witnesses based on an agreement reached last week between Republican Chairman Devin Nunes and Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. So, what information will we, and when will we see that information? That, as Alicia Powell said on our show last night, it's going to come out. But when and how, I guess that's the question. But we now know that the House committee had access to all the ins and outs of this Russia dossier. Now, where they go from here and what actions they take from here, I think will be very telling of what they found out yesterday. But on a separate issue, still tied together, is the inquiry now into the FBI officials and the misconduct between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. I hope everybody's following along, because I'm even having a hard time following along. But let's play this piece from Fox News so I don't have to butcher this explanation.
Some of the leaks to the media on the Russia investigation. This is prompted by the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page shortly before Election Day in 2016, suggesting they knew about a Wall Street Journal article in advance, at least. Agent Strzok, of course, was removed from the investigation after other anti-Trump texts. Joining me now with more on this is Morgan Wright. He is a cybersecurity analyst and senior fellow at the Center for Digital Government. There are a couple different issues here. One of them has to do with the idea that it's possible that this British spy, Christopher Steele, was out shopping around parts of the dossier to the media, and, you know, everything that may entail. And then also these text messages going back and forth where you have these two talking about articles that have been published, and, you know, they're saying things like, you know, boy, that was fast. Should I, quote, find it for the team? Right. And then they talk about how the article was, you know, very anti-bureau, and they're glad they threw this one under the bus because the article didn't come out the way they wanted. What does all this mean to you?
quote Jerry Maguire, follow the money. In this case, follow the data. When you follow the data, you follow the messages, you follow the emails, you follow the phone calls, you follow whatever the trails are out there. What you're going to ultimately find, I believe, is that there's more collusion between the DOJ and the media than there is between the Trump campaign and Russia. It's just, Melissa, the real sad fact about this is that this has a huge downstream effect for an alliance, one called the Five Eyes, U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. People are not wanting to share their information and intelligence with us for terrorism, for crime, for military operations, and for our forces, because we can't keep anything secret. All of this stuff getting out there is only hurting our national security at home and abroad.
When you see the text back and forth, it seems like they're sharing information because they want to shape public opinion.
Absolutely.
Whether it is about their bureau or it's about the president or a special investigation or whatever it is, they're trying to influence how the public thinks. And I don't think that's something that people normally think FBI agents are out doing. We think of FBI agents as investigating wrongdoing.
Look, this pin is the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. I got friends, FBI on down, state and local, love these folks. The problem is you get up to the point where it becomes political. You're right. They're just leaking this information to shape public opinion. The same thing they're saying the Russians were trying to do with their influence operation, which was shape people's opinions about Trump or Clinton and get them to vote a certain way. This shouldn't be happening. I mean, this information should not be coming out. And, Melissa, at the level it's coming out at the height, in terms of the hierarchy and where these senior people are, that's very distressing because it means that it's a coordinated effort. And because they are insulated like that, they're going to do a lot more to protect themselves. If you're a traditional line agent or out there on the street, you'd be hosed over something like this. They're getting the protection based on the level they're at.
That's the question is it against the law? Because what they're doing, you're saying it's dangerous to our national security because it makes our allies feel like our FBI agents are out leaking all kinds of information for political benefit or whatever, so they don't want to give us information. Is it illegal? What do they have to be sharing in order for them to actually be in trouble?
Some of there's going to be a variety of things. One is it's not illegal. It may be against Bureau policy. The Office of Professional Responsibility inside the Bureau will handle that. Could be violation of DOJ guidelines. But when you start talking information, maybe it's sensitive, maybe it's classified, which we hope it's not, or maybe it violates certain laws about what the things you're not allowed to do, especially with the media, because you got to remember the government and the media and our CIA and the media have had a very strenuous relationship for a lot of years. So we got to be careful about that.
Going back to the Christopher Steele thing before we go. So it seems like now this British spy, Christopher Steele, who manufactured this dossier that turned out to be just a smear campaign and the facts within it weren't true. It was paid for, at least in part, by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. He then shopped it to the media before, do we know, was it used to get...
All right, we'll stop it there, John. I'm not sure how far you got. We're about at the 4-minute and 18-second mark, and it is this is a good place to stop. But they covered a lot of interesting ground here from what was said, what more of the text message between Strzok and Page came out have said, pointing to, as they said, collusion. There's more collusion between the DOJ and the media than there is between Trump and the Russians. So I thought that was an interesting point. And this is just, again, we have tons of these messages, and we've only seen a few hundred of them, and it'll be interesting to see what else are on those communications. But the text messages reviewed by The Hill show two agents seemingly attempting to track down New York Times reporter Matt Apuzzo, who had covered the Russia collusion investigations. They said, "We got a list of kids with their parents' names. How many Matt Apuzzos could there be in D.C.?" And then they were trying to track him down because they want to feed him information, I'm sure, or to tell him how he, wrote wrong information about the Russia investigation with the report they were unhappy with. But either way, they're trying, as the media, as a clip we just listened to pointed out, they are trying to do exactly what they're accusing the Trump and Russia of doing, which was information warfare, trying to change political opinion by leaking information. And this is exactly what they accused the Trump-Russia of doing, and this is what they're doing. There's 27 current investigations into leaks from the DOJ and the White House. You have what this man just said, what was his name? Morgan Morgan Wright, he just, a cybersecurity analyst, just said it's damaging our national security. Countries don't want to share information with us because of the amount of leaks we have seen. And let's talk about the issue of the politicalization of the top levels of the DOJ and FBI. Is this subversion? Was this a criminal act of subversion, trying to undermine a legitimate president of the United States with political purposes? And I would argue that it is. I believe that they should not only be removed from their positions, they should be criminally charged. It's obvious. If you're at the head of the Hillary Clinton investigation, we saw them give her an exoneration before they even reviewed the evidence, before they even interviewed her. We know Comey admitted to leaking memos to spur the special counsel investigation, which he did. He is also accused of leaking classified information. I mean, it is so insane. Never, I don't think there's ever been scandals what we see from the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton State Department and the corruption in the DOJ and FBI. I don't think we've ever seen such blatant bias and criminal politicalization in these top areas of law enforcement. It's always been there, but we are seeing it for the first time in its whole terrific and terrible view. I mean, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Consider this, posted yesterday at Institute for Political Economy by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. And the headline is simply, Russiagate turns on its originators. And so what I want to do just for a brief moment is kind of pull the camera back. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts writes, Russiagate originated in a conspiracy between the military security complex, the Clinton-controlled Democratic National Committee, and the liberal progressive left. The goal of the military security complex is to protect its outsized budget and power by preventing President Trump from normalizing relations with Russia. Hillary and the DNC want to explain away their election loss by blaming a Trump-Putin conspiracy to steal the election. The liberal progressive left want Trump driven from office. As the prostitutes are aligned with the military security complex, Hillary and the DNC and the liberal progressive left, the Russiagate orchestration is a powerful conspiracy against the President of the United States and the deplorables who elected him. Nevertheless, the Russiagate conspiracy has fallen apart and has now been turned against its originators. And Joe, this ties in beautifully to, again, your opening statement about the truth. If these people don't somehow have a massive spiritual epiphany and figure out that there's the truth and no such thing as your truth, we live in the greatest open forum of intelligence gathering, intelligence and data sharing ever known to humankind, and that's the internet. Joe, these people's sins are going to come around and bite them in the backside.
Yes, they are, John. Now, I know we didn't talk about this before the show, but I want to take the last 5-6 minutes here to talk about the Q stuff and one of the claims that was made, and maybe you know a little bit more about this than I do. What
Probably
have you
not,
heard about what has Q said about Julian Assange? Do we know?
Well, there's been some scuttlebutt that there's a supposition that he is en route to the United States or may already be in the United States.
Okay,
however,
I got a report here.
Yeah, the Ecuador. Go ahead.
Did you see this about Ecuador is set to remove Julian Assange from its London embassy after infuriating the country's president by tweeting about his allies? Ecuador is working on turning out WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who has been living in their London embassy for 5 years. The South American country is looking for a third-party mediator to help them work out a settlement with Britain regarding Assange, the former minister said Tuesday. Former Minister Maria Ferdinand Espinosa said Ecuador was considering and exploring the possibility of mediation to end the untenable 5-year stay. That from the Daily Mail.
Oh, boy. You know, if this were in the southern United States, we could say that perhaps Mr. Julian Assange is being served a cold breakfast. You know, which is a many, many generations cultural indicator that you've overstayed your welcome, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him arrested. It would be It really would be nice to see him brought back to the United States and be pardoned or you know, whatever. But there are some people in the United States in the top levels of government who would never let that happen. They'd probably kill him or try to.
Julian Assange is my goodness, he's like Deep Throat and Ed Snowden and Daniel Ellsberg of the infamous Pentagon Papers. He's like all of them rolled together. President Donald Trump, this is just my opinion, but when he says his prayers at night, he should thank the good Lord above for Julian Assange, because in my humble opinion, Joe, Julian Assange, more than anything else, more than build that wall, lock her up, or drain the swamp, Julian Assange handed the presidency to a degree to Donald Trump.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. That's true, but at the same time, I would argue that if Donald Trump's emails were leaked, I don't think there would be stuff in there that would be so appalling. And what we saw with the Hillary Clinton emails, those people shot themselves in their foot with their demonic, corrupt natures.
Excellent point.
So, either way. But yes, he played an instrumental role in the 2016 election. To what degree, I don't know. But what we do see is a lot of talk about
Me neither,
Assange.
but I thought it sounded good.
It did. But I mean, you're in theory could be right, but at the same time, that's lending credence to Hillary Clinton's claim that she lost the election because Comey opened the email investigation, or she lost the election because of WikiLeaks. I think we can't.
Well, she's lucky she didn't lose her. She's lucky she didn't lose her freedom. I'll make this my final comment for today, Joe. Give you the last couple minutes for a lightning round. What Comey should do is get a different hairstyle, buy some different suits, and go directly to Beverly Hills and become a talent agent. There you go. That's Comey's future right there. Either that, or we should just put him in an orange jumpsuit. Well,
there's been a lot of talk about Julian Assange on the internet, on the Q forums, and on the videos, and I've just been kind of on the periphery reading. I haven't been on the message boards like 4chan or 8chan. I don't do that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with Julian Assange. Many people were speculating today, and there was an article on the Gateway Pundit. He put a little hourglass on his Twitter feed, or on his Twitter as a picture. And some are saying that, that means something's about to happen with him. And with the speculation being there's from Q that something was going on with Assange. Obviously, he's not on his way back to the U.S. on a plane. That would have been one long plane ride, because I've been hearing this for the last 5 days. So
there is an hourglass icon next to his name
But isn't that the WikiLeaks logo?
Excellent point, Joe. We've been using the WikiLeaks logo, when appropriate, on articles at Hagmann Report for several years. That hourglass has been around a long time. That's a very good point.
So I don't know. I don't know what it means. There's no explanation. It's only speculation of other people and what they think. So I'm just saying that there's something to pay attention to. And I know you said tonight Tracy Beans is coming on our show, and we're not going to really get into this stuff. But I wouldn't mind asking a few questions about this and her thoughts on Julian Assange, because it's definitely a very interesting story with geopolitical implications from here to Europe. And what, if any, crimes would Assange face here? Is he in danger of being prosecuted for some kind of cyber crime? That's a question we have to look at. I don't know. I know what he's in the embassy for is because of a charge from Sweden that has been dropped, but for some reason he still is not free to move about anywhere. I don't know why that is.
Let me ask you a quick question, Joe. Do you I know we've never met the man, but do you, at the end of the day, more or less like Julian Assange? I mean, do you think he's a good guy, or do you think he's treasonous and dangerous?
I don't think he's treasonous.
Me neither. I actually
think he is dangerous.
Kind of like the guy. I think he's got a lot of moxie, and he is dangerous. But dangerous changes the course of human endeavors.
I mean, as long as he's not putting out battlefield plans, and he's putting out things. He's putting out classified information on ways the government intrudes and hurts us. So it's not like he's just putting everything out there. He's being very selective and showing the programs they use to deceive and spy on us, I guess, if I had to assess it like that.
That's an excellent assessment.
Well, that'll do it for us today. That's the outro music playing. It was a good show, and we will be back tomorrow. And don't forget to tune in to the Hagmann Report tonight. If you can support us, there's a PayPal link in the Blog Talk description, and we thank you for listening to the show. John, have a good day.
You too.
The Hagmann Daily Show is brought to you by the Hagmann Report. Tune in to the Hagmann Report weekdays, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to HagmannReport.com. That's HagmannReport.com.